Grief is not something you fix. It's something we figure out how to live with and move forward with. Over time, over years that come, the intensity of grief can lessen. It can be easier to hang on to and to live with. In the beginning, it's an open wound. Later on in life, it's a healed scar. But you always have the scar. It's always there. When someone that close to our life passes away and leaves, you just can't fix that. You don't fix grief. It stays with you.
Welcome to the Heart Hospice podcast, where compassion meets expertise and care goes beyond the expected. Here, we open the door to a world of understanding, where hospice care isn't just for the last moments of life, but is a journey of comfort, support, and dignity. On each episode, we'll dive deep into topics that matter most to patients, families, and communities, from the essentials of hospice care to the incredibly powerful stories that inspire Heart to Heart's exceptional mission. Founded on a commitment to holistic, patient-centered care, Heart to Heart Hospice stands apart as a privately held company that prioritizes compassion over profits, ensuring every patient receives the personalized attention they deserve. So whether you're here to understand more about hospice care, to support a loved one, or to learn about the impactful work behind the scenes, Heart to Heart Hospice is here to support you. Welcome to the Heart Hospice podcast.
Hello, listeners. This is MJ Durkin, the host of the Heart to Heart podcast from Lansing, Michigan. We are really glad that you have joined us for this episode of the Heart to Heart podcast. And we're talking today to the Reverend Dr. Brandon Hempel. He is a bereavement coordinator and a chaplain out of the Heart to Heart Hospice Lansing branch. Brandon, how are you today?
I'm doing good. Glad to be here. Thanks a lot. Yeah.
We are excited to talk with you. We know that you have a lot of experience in counseling people, helping people with bereavement and end-to-life issues. As we know, the diagnosis of a terminal illness or something of that nature is an earth-shattering, a life-shattering event. So this podcast is a way for us to openly talk about some of the issues and how Heart to Heart Hospice can be helpful. So we're excited to talk with you. The Heart to Heart Hospice branch out of Lansing covers about a 60-mile radius. It goes into Jackson and Kalamazoo. Is that correct?
Yes, we are a branch here in Lansing. We also have a branch office in both Jackson and Kalamazoo. The Jackson office is and will always be a part of Lansing. Our Kalamazoo office is really new this year. And so our office is helping that one get up and started and running. Eventually, it'll be big enough to have its own full team and one day bereavement coordinator. But until then, I'm their bereavement person as well.
Okay, I like it. I like it. Many, many years ago, I wrote a book, a sales-oriented book, and I was invited to speak in Kalamazoo, Michigan. And I remember the tiny little airport there in Kalamazoo.
Yep, it's a cool little spot. Bing
yeah.
Crosby even did a song about Kalamazoo.
Oh, really? Okay,
Yeah.
cool. My sons were very young then, and they were like, Dad's going to Kalamazoo.
I often just call it Kazoo.
Kazoo? Yeah.
Yeah,
You have to admit, it's a fun name, you know?
absolutely.
I think everybody should go to Kalamazoo at least once in a lifetime. So, Brandon, let's talk about our topic today is a pre-bereavement. Perhaps define pre-bereavement for us and tell us what that entails.
Sure. So when somebody comes onto hospice care, my work starts immediately and not just after someone has passed away. Pre-bereavement is what we provide to a patient and their family and friends to help them cope with the news that they've been given, the new challenges that are coming, and the news that comes along the way. Sometimes people still have a thought that my person's going to get better and this is all going to end. And then when the moment of, the time is close comes, there's another shock or another, punch in the gut kind of a feeling. And so we're there to help through all that.
Yeah, so it's a new landscape, it's new territory for people when they hear about their own diagnosis, such as this is terminal, and also that reverberates into personal family members, immediate family members, perhaps even a community, a neighborhood, a church, right? Somebody might be involved in a church, a synagogue, a mosque.
For sure.
right? And people have friends and people that are rooting for them. And that diagnosis, is there any other word for it?
Our language would be a terminal diagnosis.
A terminal diagnosis. Okay.
Yeah.
So the inflection point or the event that causes somebody to come and seek out heart to heart hospice and to be referred to someone like you as you start to
Yeah.
talk with them.
Yeah, exactly. Their doctor at some point would have said, what you're experiencing is terminal, and we want to give you the advice of seeking out hospice care because it's time for that extra support in your life and your family's life.
Yeah. Well, as someone who experienced over 30 years ago, my father who had lung cancer and emphysema after his terminal diagnosis, he had about a year. And I often say it was his best year.
Yeah.
And he tied up a lot of loose ends, and especially with his family. And maybe I'll bring that into our talk sometime. So let's talk about, Brandon, when somebody gets that terminal diagnosis and then somebody says, Dr. So and so, or the nurse practitioner told us to call you, our reverend, mentioned
Mm-hmm.
that we should call you. Talk to us about kind of step one, where you kind of start to talk to the person about their feelings and start the initial coping process.
Sure. So when someone gets that nudge that hospice is, it's time to call them, some of our people reach out and begin that process of the signing on. The nurses do their opening stuff. They go in and do all of that they do to figure
Yeah.
out what the person needs. Once it gets past all of that, then we're informed. We have this new person who's on board, and that's when I can begin to make a phone call to reach out. Sometimes a nurse will say to me right away, this family person wants to talk to you, or don't call yet, they're not ready, kind of a thing. They don't want to talk to you yet. Sometimes that happens.
The nurse might make that suggestion that this is something you can access. We have these services. We have a chaplain.
Yep.
We have someone who's a specialist in bereavement.
Yep.
And then maybe it goes further, or it's interesting. I never thought, or it gets stopped and somebody says, no, I'm not ready to deal yet. I don't want to talk yet. That's very real, isn't it?
It sure is. Some
Yeah.
people just, sometimes there are some myths that go behind the word chaplain or bereavement coordinator and that scare people a little bit. And they think it's just that person who comes in at the last moment and does the blessing, and they're just not ready for that. So when there's an opportunity to have a conversation to dispel the myths, that's great. And a lot of our team are good at that. So I get introduced by the nurse or the social worker. They're usually in there first. And then they're the ones saying, hey, you'd probably really enjoy talking to Brandon or Chaplain Michael or so on and so forth.
So, before we talk about what I would call step two, where you talked and used an example with me before, and I don't want to say that example yet because I thought it was a good one. Talk to us about the overall context of a person who gets this terminal diagnosis for their loved one or for themselves. Give us the overall context of what kinds of feelings can come up and what do people sometimes do with those feelings? Like, give us a little primer on, okay, you've got this bad news. Holy smokes, you got a bit of a gut punch. What comes up for people?
Yeah. And so I've been in this room with folks a lot, and also myself. My own father went through cancer and we had hospice care and he passed. So I remember experiencing those things myself. But then again, with all the people that we have had in our care, hundreds of people, and when that news comes, it just takes the wind out of you, really. And it's such a huge adjustment to hear a doctor, a professional say, so and so has a terminal illness. They're not going to get better and they're going to pass away because of this. It's devastating. It creates feelings of anger, of sadness. It creates some depression. It creates confusion. It often even creates just a sense of, I don't want to hear that. I'm going to stuff that aside. I'm not going to think about what you just said. I'm just going to focus on taking care of them and making them comfortable. And they're going to get better. I know they are. I know you're wrong, doctor. All of those kinds of things come into play here that someone begins to experience and walk through. And they're all real, they're all raw, and none of it's wrong. one of the first things I say to people is what you're feeling, what you're experiencing, what you're saying, you are not broken and you're not wrong, because grief is unique to every individual person.
Well, that's a one-liner that I really want our listeners to take away from this is that grief is unique to every individual person. And I remember when I had called my parents' house and my mother said, your dad went to the doctor today. And I said, oh, and she said, he has cancer. And my mom being a pessimist, and me being an optimist, I said, okay, well, I was totally like, we'll get through it and nothing's final yet. It wasn't a terminal diagnosis at that point, right? But my mom's grief went right to, uh-oh, he's leaving. And I went immediately to, we're going to beat this thing. We're going to get it, right?
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
so it was unique to me and it was unique to my mom, and everybody in the family had a unique perspective. I had a brother who didn't want to hear anything. He didn't want to know about it. It'll all be fine.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And one of the things that I do in that pre-bereavement role is to enter into that
Mm,
with what each person is experiencing.
mm,
So entering in with you would have been to engage with you in the hope that we're going to get off of this. We're going to graduate from hospice. We're not going to need it. This isn't going to happen. Or
mm,
with your mom, it's engaging in, she realizes, oh my goodness, we're coming to the end here. So that's one of the keys in bereavement work is I'm not there to tell you what you should feel or what should happen or how you should act. I'm there to join you in your journey and support you, put an arm around your shoulders, so to speak, and just let you know that you're not alone. This is okay.
Yeah. So you said something to me which I thought was really heartfelt and very interesting.
Mm.
You talked about that one of your roles is perhaps to help people, and I like how you said, and you said, "Excuse me," vomit emotions. It didn't offend me to say vomit. I don't think
Okay, yeah,
with the kinds of things they say on podcasts these days, I don't think
sure.
saying vomiting, but you're a classy guy, so I get it. But talk to us about the idea of vomiting these emotions, and you used an interesting example with the ladder, and talk to us about that. I thought that was very good.
Well, people who are open to it, I become a neutral, non-biased, safe person, you could say, for them to talk to. And it would be hard to vomit and vent with their immediate family, so to speak. And so that's one of my roles, is to give them a place to come out and go, I'm so mad, I'm so angry, I'm so sad, I'm depressed, or just cry and just let all that out. And for me to be there and listen and to validate it and to say to them, this is okay to feel that way,
Mm,
and encourage them to let it out. And I often see myself as a bereavement coordinator, a chaplain. One of the things that we refer to a lot is sitting in the pit with people, and people who are feeling and experiencing this grief, they resonate with that picture because they always say to me, yeah, that's exactly what I need. And the picture is that I like to see myself, there's a person who's hurting and they're in this pit that has been created for them and they're forced into it, so to speak. So I get a ladder and I extend it down into the pit. I climb down in, I sit next to them, and I just tell them I'm here. I'm here to listen to you. I'm a safe person. You can yell, scream, kick, and cuss if you need to.
mm,
And I'm not going to judge you. I'm not going to tell you you're wrong or anything. I'm here to enter into this journey with you so that you know you're not broken, you're not wrong, and that what you're experiencing is normal. It's grief. And you have grief because you have love, such deep love for a person, and
mm.
you have a relationship for this person. And what you're experiencing is painful. So I sit there with them.
And you validate it, right? And you
Yeah,
say, you're not alone. I'm here to be beside you.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
You said something to me in the pre-interview, which I thought was very powerful. You said you also say to them that grief cannot be fixed. Talk to us about that a little bit.
Yes, grief is not something you fix that can be fixed. It's something we figure out how to live with and move forward with. Over time, over years that come, the intensity of grief can lessen. It can be easier to hang on to and to live with. In the beginning, it's an open wound. later on in life. It's a healed scar, but you always have the scar. It's always there. When someone that close to our life passes away and leaves, you just can't fix that. And so I often share, I think one of the greatest things we do as chaplains and bereavement coordinators is if we have a story to share out of our story, people connect with stories so well. And I let people know that my father died 26 years ago from cancer, and he was a mechanic. And before I went into ministry, I was a mechanic. That's another story. But I can go out to my garage today, reach for a wrench in my toolboxes, and see his initials engraved on it, and still cry today.
Mm.
Because you don't fix grief, it stays with you. Now, a lot of times today, it's tears of joy, tears of the memories I had of working with my dad in the garage and fixing a car. So I share my story with folks, and they connect and relate to that. And it helps so much just to hear that.
Yeah, that's very powerfully said. I was always amazed in my own grief experience with my dad and others how it would seem like I could hold it together to go to work and interact with people and, pay the bills
Mm-hmm.
and get the deliveries. And I remember
Yeah.
one of my coworkers said to me, "Boy, you're doing so great. You seem so great." And I said, "Well, to use your word, no offense, but you don't see me in the shower, you know?"
Exactly.
Right. And I guess it's the, being in the shower with no stimulation, no TV, no radio, where all of a sudden I would start to break down and like have a full cry. But
Yep.
sometimes I would just find myself going,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, a lot of times people will say, "Why am I just losing it now?" And I'll refer back to either before someone passed away, you were very busy taking care of things. You were very busy taking care of that person. You were very busy being the strong one for your family. And with that, you're still having the grief, but you're pushing the grief back. And you're saying, I can't grieve yet. I'm not going to do that yet because I gotta pay the bills and run the errands. And I gotta be there for mom and I gotta be there for cousin John or whoever. And then when all that comes to an end, that person finally just poof, it just kind of the wave comes in and knocks them over. And and that's okay because we need strong people in our families who can weather the storm, let it out in the shower, and then shake it off and be strong again when they
Mm,
need to be. So
mm, mm. Yeah, that's really good. So you mentioned something to me that I thought was really interesting and keeping it in line with this idea of anticipatory grief. You said to me, people think of hospice and even heart to heart hospice, they think of it as it's all about death. But you said to me, it's not about death, it's about life. Talk to us about that.
absolutely, anticipatory grief is the grief that comes that we experience before someone passes away. And many times, people, and this is another picture that I give because a lot of times many people just know this right away, but they hear the word chaplain or bereavement and they think of Father Mulcahy from MASH. And
Mm,
that's their picture of what a chaplain is and what they do or what a bereavement person does. And so I always appreciate the time to have a conversation with people and to dispel the myths that we're just here to help someone die. We're here to help life be as good as it can be. We care about life. And of course, we want to help someone be comfortable at the time that their body experiences end of life. But we're here to make every day as great and as wonderful as it can be. And so, our nurses, our social workers, our chaplains, our bereavement people, we all come on board to do different things and provide this whole support package to the family and to the patient. And that's where we shine. It's in those days before someone passes. And that's what we hear later. That's what I'm blessed with. Later, I'm on the phone with someone later, and they're saying to me, Nurse so and so was amazing. She let me cry in her shoulder. And Chaplain Michael did, and they
yeah.
talk about all the things that we helped them with in that pre bereavement time when they were grieving even before someone was gone.
Mm, mm. So not only do you have emotional issues as a member of a family or close to the person with the diagnosis, so you have all kinds of emotional things, feelings, as you said, fear, anger. You also have a lot of logistical things that start happening when someone is sick, right? I love your idea of the inclusive team
Yeah.
at Heart to Heart Hospice. You tell us about some of the things that you all help a person with or a family with.
Yeah. So each of the disciplines we have They all play a different role. Our social workers help tremendously with, I like to call them some of the best problem fixers. They help provide a lot of counsel about financial things and where do I go and how do I get this paperwork and how do I talk to the VA, and I know there's a benefit, and where do I get, they help with people who need to be placed at care facilities. The nurses also, they're the ones who are helping not only just medicine and direct care, but also what kind of equipment do you need in your home or the facility where a patient lives? Do you need a bed? Do you need a table? All of these sorts of things. And so hospice can be very busy in the first few days to a week. Sometimes people feel overwhelmed, like, oh, you guys have called me so much, but we're coordinating and getting all of those things into play. The doctor will often at times visit too, here and there, but that calms down after a while once we get everything up and running.
Hmm. Well, it reminds me, I'll tell you this story and I'll be interested in your reaction or your advice. So, my dad, who couldn't breathe, there's a term for this when someone, feels that they can't breathe. I remember the nurse saying something. Do you know the term?
I know what you're
Okay.
talking about. The lungs get filled. It's a dyspnea. Yes, that's
So,
frequent.
so he would have like panic attacks
Yeah.
based on he couldn't breathe. And
Hmm.
he was trying to signal my grandfather, who was out blowing snow or something, and it was in the middle of February, and he got angry. And I get a call from my mother saying, "You need to come down here." It was about a half an hour away. It was the worst ice storm of the season.
Yeah.
And she's like, "No, I need you here because your father wants your grandfather to leave. He'd been living there for 25 years, 20 years.
Oh
He wants your
dear.
grandfather to leave because your grandfather didn't hear him, didn't see the signal that he needed help, right?"
Yeah.
And so I show up in the ice storm and, as the oldest son, and I'm like,
Hmm.
listen, I start yelling now, right? And I'm like, this is the time for loving. This is
Yeah.
not the time. I mean, we were probably 2 months away, 3 months away from him passing, and I'm there in the middle of an ice storm on a Friday night,
Yeah.
right? I mean, they
I've
all
been there.
talk to us about it because these are things you would never think, would come up. And yet,
Yeah.
if you're someone who's intimately involved, is it true that often one person in a family kind of takes that assuming role and kind of organizes the care and kind of takes the lead? I mean, I think being the oldest, it was natural.
Yep.
Is that common?
It's very common for, and the bigger the family is, sometimes you can have a couple people who sort of rise to that and jump in to try to take the lead and be the strong pillar, you could say. And a lot of what you're saying, there's grief behind all of that too. When I'm listening as a bereavement coordinator chaplain, I'm hearing, okay, every one of them are experiencing grief right now, and it's
Mm,
coming out in different ways.
right.
Even your dad, he's grieving
Yeah.
his own situation. He's grieving the fact that he's going to pass away. So
Yeah.
he's got grief in there, and that comes through. It often just shows up when we're frustrated, when we're sad. It sort of amplifies those emotions.
Yeah.
And grief just makes it a little bit bigger, and it makes it feel a little worse, a little more intense.
Right, right. Yeah. And I'm pushing against this, I don't want to be angry at you two,
Yes.
but you're acting like children,
Yep.
and I must admit I wasn't the calmest that particular night, but
Yeah. And
go
I'm
ahead.
there to go, that's okay. It's
Mm,
all right
mm.
that you lost it. It's okay.
Yeah,
What you're experiencing, I mean, this is your father.
yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
okay that you're not perfect all the time.
Right, right. Yeah. And my father and I had a very, very close relationship. So I've noticed with other people that have passed, if they had not opened up to me or let me in that much, it wasn't as tough as it was with my dad. My dad,
Yeah.
that was the toughest one because he was the one who really, meant the most to me.
Yeah.
And he let me into his life and he supported
Yeah.
my life. So when he was gone, I couldn't believe the massive hole in the universe.
Oh yeah.
Like,
I
what do you
get
mean
it.
he's just gone? Like, I can't play Jeopardy with him on the phone
Yeah. My
tonight.
dad and
Like,
I were best friends, and I was an only child. So I didn't have any siblings to share any of that with. So I understand that feeling completely.
yeah, I get it. I get it. So I'm sure that many of our listeners can understand or start to get the feeling that this is a very complicated process. This is not a walk in the park. It is not easily, you can't fix grief.
No,
You can't fix death,
no,
right?
and there's no roadmap for it that everyone can read.
You could try to avoid grief, but eventually it's going to find you,
Oh, yes.
right?
Yes.
So,
Yes.
so my point in saying that is that you can see if you're listening to our inaugural episode that there's a lot to be said on these topics. And hopefully these audios and these discussions can be of comfort and can help you with understanding, and maybe hearing even Brandon and I talking about our own relationships with our fathers in hospice. Perhaps you're getting a little
Mhm.
feeling like we're in the pit with you right now and sitting there next to you.
For sure.
It's a complicated topic. Any tips that you might have for someone who is in this anticipatory grief, maybe in the beginning stages of perhaps having aides come to the house to help out, or just maybe just a couple things as we go to end that people should be aware of, things that they might experience or ways that they can start to navigate this with a little bit of feeling of being supported?
Sure. A couple of things I would say right away is many times we feel like we've got it handled and we can do it all. And I don't need the aide. I don't need the social worker, the chat. I don't need a nurse that often. And I would just tell people when you're grieving, you often don't know what you need. And it's really good to listen to the people in hospice who are coming in, who have that sort of outside viewpoint or unbiased view of your loved one, and listen to their advice and use your hospice team's supports. And maybe you don't need it a lot in the beginning, but don't be afraid to call the chaplain. Don't be afraid to cry with your nurse. Don't be afraid to say, this is really hard. I can't do it all. I'm so exhausted. Let the hospice team help you. And I would also say ask questions, especially someone like me. I have a plethora of resources, authors you can read, tips and tools, things you can go to on the internet when you can't sleep at night that will help you process and think through. There are lots of things that we can put in your hands, put in your tool belt to help you on this journey. And so don't be afraid to ask us and let that support come, because often people are afraid to ask for help or let help in. I'm strong. I got this.
Hmm.
It's just
Yeah.
not always the case.
Well, that's genius advice. And I want all of our listeners to hear that, because one of the things that you want to understand is this is a specialty. And the people at Heart to
Yeah.
Heart Hospice, right, in Lansing and Jackson and Kalamazoo, they've been doing this work for a long time. They've seen a lot of stuff. They've experienced a lot of stuff. They've worked through their own personal issues,
Yeah.
right? I mean, as
Yep.
a matter of fact, you told me you came into this field very much because of your father's experience and how much hospice was helpful to you, correct?
I sure did.
Yeah.
I've been a pastor for 27 years and I've been a hospice worker for going on 11 years now. And in my ministry, pastoral ministry, I would call myself a co-vocational pastor, which means I do some other things on the side to help with income. And there was a day, 11-ish years ago, I always tell people that hospice found me. And when someone said, man, you'd be a great hospice chaplain, this little light went off. And instantly I was taken back to the living room
Yeah.
where I grew up, in the house I grew up in. And I closed my eyes, and there was my dad laying in the hospital bed. And there was our nurse, Sarah. And there was our pastor, Pastor Paul from the church in town.
Mm.
And I remember the love, the tenderness, the care that they gave to us. And I knew in that moment, like, yeah, I absolutely can do that. And I want to do that. I want to give back to people and help them to have that same experience that I had. And so when that, invitation to be a chaplain came, I ran into it. And I've loved it ever since. I tell people this is what I'm cut for. It sounds weird to say I love working in hospice, but I do.
Well, I'm going to call you the minister mechanic. Um, I think you should write a book.
Yeah, I started working for
I,
General Motors. My first college was an associate's degree in auto. And from there, my dad went through his experience and the Lord tapped on my shoulder, and my education and ministry and everything has grown since. So here I am today.
I love it. I love it. Well, this has been a great conversation, Brandon. We really, really appreciate you. We know how busy you are, and thank you for taking the time to do this beginning episode on what we believe will be a very informative series and will help a lot of people navigate this very interesting and difficult time in a person's life.
I appreciate the invitation and the opportunity to share some of these things and help educate people on what we're really about so that hopefully for some who might listen to this, hospice won't be such a fearful thing to enter into.
Yeah, that's very, very well said. We'd like to ask our guests to tell us something. We've heard a little bit about your past life. Before we close, tell us something a little personal about the Reverend Dr. Brandon Hempel.
Well, let's see. I've lived in Michigan my whole life. I've always been a passionate fan of the Michigan Wolverines, the
Mm.
Detroit Lions, Detroit Tigers. I love boating and fishing and hunting. My wife and I love to go on a pontoon boat. We've got a dog named Gracie, and she's just a very special pet. We have 5 children. They're all adults now. So we've entered into the season of it's just me, Jessica, and Gracie. So we go camping and fishing. And I'm like, we should write a comic book called The Adventures of Pastor Brandon, Jessica, and Gracie.
The minister mechanic.
There you go. Yeah. So I have a 69 Chevelle with a small block 400 and a 4-speed Muncie tranny that I love to drive and tinker on in my garage. The mechanic has never left my heart as much as I love what I do in hospice and ministry. So I have a pretty diverse background and diverse set of interests. And sometimes people are like, "You're a pastor?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm a different kind of pastor." And that's okay. Because God needs all sorts of different people to reach all the different people there are in this world. And especially when it comes to hospice care, we have myself and 3 other chaplains, and each of us bring unique gifts to the table. And each of us are better than the other with a particular family. And that's just the beauty of our uniqueness.
Yeah, that's your strength and power. Well, I love the dog's name, Gracie. Well, we have a dog. It's my son's dog, and his name is David Bowie. He's a boxer mix. He's a real prancer, and he's the kind of dog that
Yeah,
will be very excited for you to give him a treat. And then he's kind of like my cousin Vinny. I got no more use for this guy, And
that's
then
right.
then he's
Until he hears a cheese wrapper open, then he's
until,
right back. Yeah, that's right.
until the greenie bag opens.
I
Yeah,
love dogs. They're a
yeah,
gift to us. I've always been a dog person, so I get it.
yeah. I love it. I love it. Well, Dr. Brandon, thanks so much for being here on the Heart to Heart Hospice podcast, supporting the Lansing branch and the Jackson branch in Kalamazoo.
That's right.
We thank you for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
To all of our listeners, we appreciate you listening. Can I make a recommendation? If you know people that are going through this difficult journey in their life, feel free to refer them to the Heart to Heart Hospice podcast. We would love for them to be able to tune in and perhaps subscribe to the podcast and have it on their phone so that whenever we release a new episode, they'll get some of the most up-to-date information on not only anticipatory grief, but even the final bereavement grief.
Yeah, it's good to say that hospice gives bereavement support for 13 months after someone passes away. A lot of times people don't know that's available or they forget. So, yeah.
Yeah, excellent, excellent. Glad we mentioned it. Thanks to all of our listeners. We'll see you on the next episode of the Heart to Heart Hospice podcast.
That concludes this episode of the Heart to Heart Hospice podcast. Be sure to check back regularly for new episodes and get connected to our guiding principles and our commitment to patient-centered care. We'll see you on the next episode.